Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we are bringing you a paid preview of Warbonds. Now, this will be coming up on a crowdfunding site near you very soon. Be sure to check the details in the description below. Now, I also did a full instructional series, a 3-part instructional series on Warbonds. Be sure to check that out as well. Warbonds is a game for 2 to 5 players. It's listed as ages 14 plus and plays in approximately 60 to 180 minutes. As you can see, the play board, the battle board, is quite large. You can see it actually barely even or doesn't even fully fit on my or in my camera frame when I've got the camera lifted almost all the way up as high as it will go. So lots of space to play with here. You can see it's broken down into this grid. And these grids are where the individual player pieces, of course, will go. And one of the player pieces, one of the most important ones, is going to be your war camp. Now let's bring the camera down a little bit. So now on the battle board, like I said, you're going to have your war camps. But let's look at this real quick. You've also got these wild terrain areas. Most of it is this normal terrain. And then you've got these road enhanced terrain areas as well. The wild areas are going to be more difficult to walk through. The road areas less difficult to walk through. And you can even see there's 2 different types of movement here, both on foot as well as mounted. There's also flying movement in the game as well, but of course terrain has very little to do with flying movement other than when you're landing. Now, players will all have their war camps. The war camp is one of the most important pieces in the game because if you lose your war camp, you lose the game. Every player, you can see player 1 is going to be blue, player 2 is red, player 3 will be green, player 4 yellow, player 5 purple. Keep in mind, of course, this is a prototype, so everything you see here could potentially change in the final version of the game, though I will say it seems a lot of work has gone into getting this set up the way it is. But again, still it is a prototype copy. Now, your war camps are going to have this side, which is the encampment side, and this side, which is the caravan side. Caravan side is where you normally how you're going to be able to move around if you're trying to move any significant distance with your war camps. I will say that the encampment side does have the ability to move 1 space for free on a road enhanced terrain, as does the caravan side as well. Basically, the road enhanced terrain gives units and your war camp that ability to just move 1 space for free just because of how easy it is to move there. Now, besides the war camp, another incredibly important piece in the game is going to be your warlord. So you've got, for instance, Tangus the Unchained and Scarred Rufus the Red and Maestro Sarah Carthage, Vagabond Goyer Alabrath, and Anna Zandra Soul Judiciary. Each player will have 1 warlord. So, for instance, maybe player 1 goes with Anna and player 2 goes with Tangus, who I feel like is one of the coolest looking ones in the game. Every unit in the game, whether it's a warlord or just a normal, squad unit, is going to have 2 ID pieces here. One with where it has the movement here that you can see there. This side is their presence, but this one has the movement on it. This piece goes on the board itself, and whenever a player puts a piece out, they will use one of these tokens underneath it to clearly mark who it belongs to. Now, besides warlords, like I said, there are normal units, and the game comes with all of these different types of units. We've got adept archers, begotten witches, bleeding horrors, boulder hurlers, council of mages, domesticated corvus, little anarchists, the living dead, orphaned beasts, pack of Alvarez, painbringers, phalanx, Piatek knights, runic protectors, Valkyrie, vermin bombers, virtuous clerics, and wandering spirits. All right, so you have all these different ones. You can see on here, some of them are going to be neutral aligned. Some are chaos evil. We've got neutral evil, chaos, chaos good, law evil, law good. So you can see all the different variations there. And based on your your alignment, your warlord's alignment, that's going to affect which of these you're able to recruit. And so, for instance, maybe Anna here recruits the Begotten Witches, and Tangus, the Vermin Bombers. And so you can see these units actually have their own movement and everything. You've got you've got flying foot soldiers here. You've got mounted flying units here. And all of these units have all kinds of stats as well. Now, one thing to point out is that the health of squad units, you can see here, Anna has 31 health, Tangus here has 32 health, but the squad units have this different symbol. That's because when they take damage, it's actually just going to reduce the number of units in the squad. So to give you a quick rundown of what the stats are here, you've got the health and the squad unit size, obviously, which, again, amounts to their health. This is their initiative. This is their movement. This right here is the attacks per turn, which just talks about how many hits, essentially, they're going to be able to make in a turn. You've got their presence here. And then we've got right here is their vulnerabilities, their immunities, and their resistances. So you can see here we don't have anybody with any vulnerabilities or immunities, but we do have some resistances here and here. Every unit is going to have its own special abilities. These are pretty wide-ranging, and some are attacks, some are spells. Loyalty is also very important to determine whether or not a unit is going to recall from the battle. Essentially, if their loyalty drops to a point where it's not sustainable anymore, they're going to essentially abandon the warlord because whatever has happened has caused them to become less loyal. Warlords, on the other hand, are going to use leadership. They often spend that. You can see here they can gain 1 leadership. Here they can pay 2 leadership to do various things. You also see these different symbols here talking about different damage types, and there's actually quite a few damage types in the game. You can see we've got normal, fire, thunder, life, acid, ice, magic, and death. The cool thing with life and death is non-undead units actually get healed from life damage, and undead units get healed from death damage. So those are that's pretty interesting. I've not ever seen a game like that where, from most games, I guess this is how maybe some early D&D was done. Most games that I see, it's just healing. It's not life damage. So that I thought was pretty interesting. This, by the way, is the player guide. So there's a player guide for every player in the game, and it walks you through all kinds of stuff in here. Basically gives you a large reference tool as you're playing, because there is a lot going on here for sure, but you can see it walks you through the resource tokens, the damage types, attack targeting, war camp stats, all that kind of stuff. The unit stats over here. If you move on to here, on this page, it talks about war camps themselves. It gives you an in-depth look at the war camps, and you are able to level your war camps up. In fact, getting to level 3 is one of the ways you win the game. The other primary way you would win the game would be if you defeat all of the other warlords. Once you're the last warlord standing, you would win in that case. So over here, this shows you the 5 warlords and suggested initial squad units to bring in. So for Anna, the Begotten Witches, the Valkyrie, the Painbringers, the Playtech Knights, the Pack of Aralez, and Boulder Hurlers. And then it breaks down the different warlords here. That way you can just see right here in your book what your opponents are using, what their abilities are. You don't have to constantly be looking at their card. And then it goes into the units themselves. Yeah, so that's the warlords. Goes into the units themselves starting here and breaks that way. Again, you don't have to dig through this deck of units to see what you might want to do. You can be referencing this to decide who you're going to recruit and win. So, again, it goes through all of them. Now, it should be pointed out that multiple players can have the same units, because if you, let's kind of clear this off for a second. So you can see the Begotten Witches, for instance. Let's zoom in just a tad. Begotten Witches here. These are the Begotten Witches Magnas. That Magnas designation right there is nothing more than just a way to distinguish between the various begotten witches that might be on the board. And there's actually up to 4 different variations. So there's Bolens, there's Aradias, or Aradias, and there's Sibyls. So you have 4 different variations of every different unit type in the game. That way, multiple players are able to have them out at the same time. Now, I've mentioned a couple times about how certain units can fly, again, such as the Vermin Bombers. The game actually comes with these sky tokens, and what you do is you're going to put these little clips on it. And so if you had some Vermin Bombers that were flying in this area here, you would just put them like that. And so now you can have 2 units in the same area like that. Flying, of course, does affect combat in certain ways, and so it's another tool to add to your arsenal and another factor to consider when you're deciding which units to recruit. So the initiative table is going to have a huge role in the order of things and how things are going to play out in the game, what order the units are going to go, of course, what order the war camps are going to go. So speaking of the war camps, let's say we've got 3 players out there. You put player 1's war camp ID piece there, or initiative piece there, player 2, player 3. Right here is where you'll keep track of the war camp damage that's been dealt to it. Right here is where you'll keep track of what level the war camp is. They start at 1, of course, and then, as I said, if you get to 3, you win the game. And then let's say we've got Tangus out here. You can see the 8 is Tangus's initiative. Anna has an initiative of 2. Golier has an initiative of 1, so maybe those are the 3 warlords that are out there. These begotten witches have initiative of 4. And so maybe this is what the unit layout looks like at a certain point in the game, And so you have your current turn indicator right here on the start space. And then as a turn begins, it's going to move down. And so Golier would go and resolve their turn. And then we'd come down to this unit. And then there's nobody else here, so it's going to come back to the top, and Anna would resolve her turn, and then down, and then nobody, and so there's nobody in initiative 3, and it just keeps moving over like this, eventually making its way all the way to the war camps, where war camp 1, 2, and 3 would then resolve their turns, and you come down here, and then at this point, you've got where the war camps can repair. You can collect any loyalty that's been stacked up in here over the course of the turn. And then it would come back up to here. And also this is where you would be able to recover. If any of your units had died, these initially go into the graveyard, and at this point you're able to recover them. Because you do have a limited number of these, and you can't, if you don't have any available, you can't put more units out on the board. There are 7 of these total for everybody to use, for each player to use for their color. Now, the recall area here, what this is if a unit either is being automatically or voluntarily recalled, which happens, again, in situations where there's not enough loyalty or where you just want to free up some space in your army for a different unit. So, for instance, maybe this unit's right here, and the current turn indicator will move down there, and then this unit, you'll be able to recall them. You get a loyalty refund. Also, when they are being recalled, you can see there's this symbol here, which means they're disabled. You would actually have also flipped the unit that's on the battle map itself to the disabled side, showing that it can't do anything. And then once it's recalled, they both get removed. So once any recalls happen, then you come over here to move Dragon. Well, what's the Dragon? The Dragon is actually the round tracker, which will start down here on the Dragon space. And so when you move the Dragon, you move it over 1, and then you're going to deal with whatever that particular event is, which in this case is War Speech. So you got War Speech, Persuade, Influence the Public, Battle Cry, and it goes back to Persuade, and it cycles through like that. And eventually, the Dragon gets here, which is the other way the game can end. So the game ends either when a player gets to level 3 War Camp, when a player is the last one with a warlord, because losing a warlord means your entire army disbands, or if the Dragon gets here and then there's some in-game stuff to figure out who won. So after the dragon moves, then players can concede if they want to. Then you have the exchange leadership. Then end of this round effects are resolved. Then flip and enable. And then start a brand new round. It comes back over here. And you keep going like that. And, if, let's say, somebody recruits another character, right? They deploy another unit. And you can see this one has a initiative of 1, so it just goes right there to the bottom of that initiative column. And so all of this is another thing that you have to take into account when you're deciding what you're going to recruit, because depending on where it's going to end up on the initiative track could have a lot to do with whether or not it's worth recruiting that unit. Now, obviously, the various units, when they're out on the board, are able to fight each other and are, they're going to be attacking each other. The warlords are very, very powerful and can attack units and all that kind of stuff. But warlords can initiate a duel. And the duel is not super complicated in how it works, but you do have this dueling table to help out with keeping track of everything. Essentially, when a duel occurs between two warlords, everything else stops and you're going to resolve this duel. You have a separate current turn indicator to keep track of this. And basically you go down, and first you will check for interruptions, meaning that a unit that is within that warlord's presence, every warlord has a presence. So for instance, Tangus here, his presence is 3. So any unit within 3 spaces that belongs to him is able to interrupt. A chaos unit can only interrupt by attacking the opposing warlord. A law unit can only interrupt by blocking an incoming attack from the opposing warlord, and a neutral unit could do either. Now, and by the way, I say blocking and attacking the warlord, you could also, if that warlord has interrupted with another unit, you could attack that unit that's been brought into the duel as well. So then after that, the first warlord will attack. And then we check for interruptions again, and the second warlord attacks. Then we check for interruptions again, and then we see if the first warlord wants to end the duel or the second warlord. And then if neither ends it, you start a new round. If one of them does end it, then you check to see, did the opponent interrupt the duel? So let's say the first warlord doesn't interrupt, but then when it comes to the second warlord's turn, they interrupt and bring in somebody to attack. They have now made the duel go from being an honorable duel to a dishonorable duel. When the if your opponent, if you're the one who's caused it to be dishonorable and your opponent leaves, there's no penalty for that. However, if you end up leaving and the duel was honorable, you actually have caused a problem for your units. They see you, refuse to complete this honorable duel, and now all your chaos and law units within your presence will lose 1 loyalty. So that's one of the ways the loyalty will start dwindling for your units and potentially cause them to abandon your cause. So clearly there is a lot going on with this game. You can see this, by the way, is obviously just a plastic bin that came with the prototype. However, the rule book does refer to a bin that you're going to be keeping these tokens in. So clearly they have some sort of storage idea in mind, which is great for the amount of tokens in here. You're not going to be having to come up with a solution on your own, hopefully, because what they're going to put in there will suffice for that. And so it makes it very easy to keep track. But yeah, so tons of stuff in here. The dice, you don't roll dice, generally speaking, for combat. I don't believe I say generally speaking because I obviously haven't looked at every single ability. But from my understanding, the dice is exclusively used to track health or your squads, as far as how many squad units are left, how many units are left in your squad, how many members are left in your squad, excuse me. So you're not rolling dice for combat. Combat is very much about using those different abilities, spending the loyalty to power up some stuff, spending your leadership if it's a warlord to power up some stuff. Because keep in mind, only warlords use leadership, only units use loyalty. And then you also, I forgot about this. You have these supply tokens as well. And let me see if I can find a unit that uses supply. Hold on, I know there's, which one was it that I was looking at during, here we go. So the pack of Arales. So they've got this nibble ability that just deals damage. Okay, so, but then Living Dogma. Take an action, pay 1 supply, sacrifice, X units, basically from, X squad members. restock or heal a nearby ally unit by X amount. And in Courier, take an action, pay 1 supply, fully resupply all nearby a nearby ally unit. If the ally unit gained any supply, both the ally and this unit gain 1 loyalty. So you can see how there's really an interplay there. This one can carry 3 supply. That's what it will start with. And then you are able to use your war camps to resupply. So war camps are able to resupply your units. They also are able to heal your units. They're able to heal themselves as well. The thing that I think is so cool about this is a game that does not shy away from the complexities of having so many different abilities, but they also, rather than giving you a bunch of different loose sheets that everybody needs to share, they give every player one of these books. So there's 5 of these books in the game. It lets you see exactly what the different warlords can do. It lets you see exactly what all the different units can do. It goes into detail about, back here, it actually breaks the units down by different, life damaging units, death damaging units, normal damaging units, that sort of thing. Units sorted by attributes over here because, I forgot to point that out. On the units, where'd it go? On the units up here, you've got different attributes that could be referenced by abilities and stuff like that. And then here in, you're just able it makes sure it says, yes, we have all this complexity in here, but by the way, every player is going to be taken care of. Every player has this whole book here to reference. This is not a rule book. This is strictly a reference guide. And now you're able to, you don't have to say, hey, opponent who I'm in a heated battle with, hand me the boulder hurlers because I want to look at them. Not because I might recruit them next. That's not why. I just want to look at them. No, you're able to just flip through the book, look at each thing, figure out what you might want to deploy next without tipping your hand to your opponents. And I think that's super cool too. Lots of great stuff going on in this game. Definitely, if any of this seems interesting to you, check it out over on the Kickstarter. And yeah, I just am excited about the amount of time that they have spent, really working on this game. There was a point a while back where they sent an initial prototype out, and then the creators weren't happy with that, and they actually paused the production of these videos for quite a while they dug into the rule set, dug into the components, and reworked it, and sent out a second group of components for me to upgrade the prototype with, and a second rule set for me to upgrade the prototype with before these videos are made. That's the kind of care they're putting into this. So I think it's a pretty cool setup, a pretty cool idea and system they've got here, and could be a lot of fun for somebody that enjoys these war game type games with lots of units, lots of abilities, lots of potential interactions between all of them. Be sure to check it out. That's Warbonds.